Good morning, guys. In previous class, I have started a second module, and already we completed two topics there. One important topic is language processors, and second one most important topic is the structure of a compiler. So yesterday we have studied that structure of a compiler with the two diagrams with the 7 phases of a compilation process. Okay, so very important question for your exam. So draw those two diagrams and explain each and every phases of those compilation process. Okay, so next is the next topic is evolution of programming languages. Programming languages because the languages in which we write the programs, so they are called as programming languages. Yesterday I told you what are these programming languages. The definition I told you, they are notation which are describing some computation to the people and computers. Okay, I repeat once again, the programming languages are nothing but they are notations, they are some symbols. Okay, so what they are describing, what they are explaining, they are explaining some computations to whom? To people and computers. It means they are allowing the communication between the people, that is human being, and the computer. Through these programming languages only human being can communicate with the computers. Okay, so for the first time, how these programming languages took birth. Okay, how they invented, when they invented, those all things we are going to study today. Okay, so for the first time when our electronic computer was invented, it was in the year 1940, during 1940s. Okay, first electronic computer was appeared or invented, but that computer was programmed by using machine languages. Okay, machine language. It means that computer programmed means what here? Inside that computer, whatever the softwares we are using, okay, whatever the softwares we are using, those all softwares were written in machine language. For example, if you are using a computer means what? There is a operating system and some other system softwares and some other basic required application softwares. Okay, so that complete computer was programmed by using machine language. It means programs or softwares were written in machine language, that is low level language, which contains only sequence of zeros and ones, which is understandable only by the machines or computers. Okay, since it is very much difficult for human beings to write and understand. Okay, so then onwards these programmers started to use or invent or develop uh, assembly level language. Then after that they invented high level languages. Okay, so in this first electronic computer, which was invented in 1940, and all programs were written in machine language. So since at that time the operations were in very low level, operations were very low level means very very simple operations were there. So we didn't want to do some more complicated operations on those computers. So only we wanted to do some or perform some very low level operations like data movement from one place to another place, or one memory to another memory, or one register to memory, or memory to register, like this. The movement of data from one location to another location is one operation, and adding the contents of two registers and comparing the two values and so on, like this. These all operations, low level operations, already you have studied in the previous module, first module. Okay, I mean to say is you have written these all operations in assembly level language or assembly language. So where in SIC and SICXC, if you remember, I told you some programming examples there: data movement and looping iterations. Okay, so some arrays. So these all examples I told you there, some how to perform input output operations, right? So these all operations were very low level operations which were performed on this basic computer which was invented in 1940. So these operations, okay, to do these operations, whatever the instructions we write, those instructions were written in machine language, which contains only zeros and ones. So because of that only, since they contain only zeros and ones, these programs were difficult or hard to understand and modify. In fact, to write also. Okay, so they were difficult to understand and modify. Now, next we moved to high level languages, but not directly to high level languages. In between low level and high level, there is one more level is there, that is assembly level. Okay, so since it was very difficult to understand these low level programs, low level language programs or machine language programs, the first step, the initiation which was taken to develop these high level languages was, for the first time developers or programmers started to develop uh, people friendly programming languages. People friendly programming languages means what it is? It is not machine friendly, it is people friendly. It means human beings can understand these programming languages, but machine cannot understand these programming languages. So that people friendly language invented was assembly language first, not directly high level. Okay, so for the first time we invented assembly languages so that it will be very easy to understand and modify for us. Okay, so for the first time we developed assembly languages which was containing only mnemonic instructions. And this invention was in the year 1950. In 1940 machine languages was invented, and in 1950s mnemonic instruction language, which is called as assembly language, was invented. So which is assembly language? So previously in previous module assembler you studied, there whatever the programs you had written, SIC program and SIC program, they were written in assembly language only. Particularly for which machines? SIC machine and SIC machine, we had written those programs. Okay, those programs are assembly language programs. So initially in the beginning when we invented these assembly languages, whatever the instructions we used in these languages, they were just a representation of machinery instructions. Okay, it means when we started to use these assembly languages for the first time, at that time we had written the programs with some machine instructions here. Okay, mnemonic machine instructions. Obviously program means what? Set of instructions. So what type of instructions we had written there? Instead of zeros and ones like a low level language, we started to use some mnemonic instructions here. Okay, mnemonic instructions is nothing but they have some English names there. Okay, instead of zeros and ones. Okay, now slowly after few months we started to use macro instructions also in assembly language. Earlier, at the beginning, at the initial stage, we started to use mnemonic instructions, and slowly we started to use macro instructions. Then what is the difference between these mnemonic instructions and macro instructions? Mnemonic instructions are nothing but, already I told you, STL return address, LDA, STA, STCH, LDCH. These all instructions, whatever you see in SIC program and SIC program, these all are mnemonic instructions. But today the question is, what is the macro instructions? What are macro instructions? Yesterday I told you, actually macro is nothing but it is just like your function in your C program, function definition in your C program. So whenever you want to call that function, you use one function call statement in your main function, right? So that function call statement itself is a macro instruction. For example, in your program, you want to execute. Okay, suppose your program is 100 lines. Okay, suppose your program contains 100 lines, length of your program is 100 lines of program. It is in that program you have some 10 lines or 10 statements continuously. Okay, and these 10 statements you want to execute once again in one more place of your program. Maybe it may be line number 80 to 90. Okay, So you want to execute these 10 statements which are present from line number 20 to 30. Okay, for example, 20 to 30. The same statements which are in line number 20 to 30, you want to execute from again line number 80 to 90. Okay, those 10 statements you want to repeat once again. So instead of repeating these statements, instead of typing or writing those statements once again in your program, for the first time when you had written these 10 statements, you should give a label or a name to this set of 10 statements or block of 10 statements. And when you want to execute these 10 statements for the second time, no need to write those all 10 statements once again. You just write the label there. Automatically these macro instruction, it will become macro instruction, and this macro instruction will be expanded when this program is handled to compiler or hand over to compiler. And who will expand this one? Yesterday only I told you, when I was started phases of compiler, preprocessor will expand these macro instructions. It means that when the compiler directly look into this macro instruction, it will not understand what is this label. Okay, so for that compiler, every program whatever we are giving as an input should be ready made. Okay, it should be ready made, so that this preprocessor will expand these macro instructions. It means that instead of label, preprocessor what it does, it removes that label and it writes those 10 statements what you had written for the first time in your program. It means the size of your program is increased. The complete expanded program or modified source program will be given to the compiler as a input. Are you understanding now? So two types of instructions we have started to use in our assembly programs or assembly languages. So those are mnemonic instructions, and next started macro instructions. Macro, it is not micro. Okay, then what we did, so why we used these macro instructions? Because these macro instructions allowed the programmer to define some shorthands here, some shortcuts. That only I told you. You can give a label or name to those block of statements. We call it as shorthands. Okay, full form. In full form we are not writing. In shorthand we are writing. In short form we are writing. Okay, it means instead of writing 10 lines, we have written only one line there, right? We reduced the size of program. So those are called as shorthands. Okay, so for which statements we can use these shorthands? For the statements which are frequently used in our program. Okay, for the instructions, for the lines, for the statements which are frequently used in our program. So instead of writing those 10 lines 2 times or 3 times or 4 times in your program whenever you required based on the problem. Okay, so you can write it only once and you can give the label to that block of instruction and you can use that label there. Then one major step towards high level languages was in the latter half of 1950s. Latter is nothing but second half of 1950s. It means in the year in between 55 to 60, 1955 to 1960. At that time, high level languages invented. In 1940, low level. In 1950, assembly level. And in 1955 to 1960, high level. Okay. So for the first time, which high level languages were invented? The first time we invented Fortran, COBOL and Lisp. So why Fortran invented? Because of some specific purpose or use. Fortran was invented for scientific computations, because earlier we didn't bother about these all complex computations. We bothered only about some simple operations like data movement, adding the two registers, right? So very simple operations we had done with the low level programs. Okay, then now we can perform some high level or complex or complicated computations or calculations like scientific computation calculation, Okay, for this one, Fortran was invented. For business data processing, COBOL was invented. For symbolic computation, Lisp was invented. Then what is the idea behind these high level languages? Why we started to use these high level languages? What is the philosophy behind this high level languages? Philosophy is nothing but what is the idea behind this one? What is the intention of these high level languages? What is the goal of these high level languages? It means it wanted to create high level notations. High level notations are nothing but the instructions written in a high level so that they can be understood by the human beings also. Okay, higher level notations are nothing but executable statements with particular syntax which is understandable by the human beings. Because of that only we are calling it as high level. Okay, with which these programmers could more easily write the numerical computations. Now programmers can easily write the programs or instructions for these computations or calculations. Okay, and programmers can easily understand them. Programmers can easily modify them. Okay, so programmers have written easily the numerical computations or the entire programs, that is a set of instructions for business applications and for symbolic programs. And these languages were so much successful so that they are using still today also. Okay, so when high level languages was invented in the year 1955 to 60, that is second half. Latter is nothing but second half of 1950s, that is nothing but 1955 to 1960. So almost 60 years back we started to use these high level languages. Today there are thousands of programming languages are there. N number of programming languages are there. These programming languages, we will categorize them, we will classify them in many of the ways or in many um, methods. How? Based on what we can classify them? One classify one classification is by generation. First generation programming language, second generation programming language, third generation, fourth generation, fifth generation, like this. Based on generation also we can classify them. Okay, and also if you want, if I want to tell you, we can classify them based on the levels also, low level, assembly level and high level, right? So here first classification is we are talking about generation, based on a classification based on a generation. First generation languages, which were first generation languages? Definitely they were low level languages. Second generation languages, they were assembly languages. Third generation languages, they were high level languages like Fortran, COBOL, Lisp, C, C++, C Sharp and Java. Okay, so fourth generation languages are designed for specific applications. Okay, so whatever the programming languages right now we are using in our day-to-day life, they are all are belong to third generation languages. So beyond this, one more generation is there, that is a fourth generation languages. Which languages, sir? These languages were invented or designed or developed for performing some operations in specific applications. For specific applications like Nomad. Which application it is? Application name it is Nomad. Why this application is used? For report generation. For report generation. Okay. So Nomad is a programming language. Sorry. Okay. It is a programming language, Nomad. For which purpose we invented this? For report generation. And one more programming language, fourth generation language, SQL, for database queries. And one more example is PostScript. PostScript programming language for text formatting. Okay. So beyond this, one more generation is there, that is fifth generation language. Fifth generation language are logic languages or constraint based languages. Remember these technical words. Okay. logic languages and constraint based languages. Logic based languages and constraint based languages. For example, Prolog and OPS5. These are the classification of programming languages based on the generation. Okay. Next, we can classify the programming languages by using one important word here, one term, that is imperative and declarative. Imperative word we use for some particular languages. It means we call these languages as imperative languages. And some other languages we call them as declarative languages. What is the difference between imperative and declarative programming languages? In imperative programming languages, okay, this programming language specifies, it means it tells us how a computation is to be done. Okay, it means imperative programming languages gives us clear idea about how to perform the computation or how to do the computation, how a computation can be done or is to be done. In future, I am going to do one computation. For that, I am going to write one program. So this imperative language tells us how this computation is to be done, how to do it. Okay, for that I highlighted, remember this word how. Okay, then examples for this type of imperative languages are C, C++, C Sharp and Java and so on. Because in these all programming languages, we clearly write the statements, executable statements, computation statements. So it tells us how to do that computation. In declarative languages, whatever the programs you have written, that program tells us what computation to be done. It means that what I should do. If you don't know, then how you can achieve it, how you can do it, right? So for the first time, before imperative languages, we should understand what I have to do. So such type of information will be given by declarative languages. What computation is to be done. Okay, these programming languages only tell what I have to do, what is my task. Okay, but our imperative languages tells how to do this computation. Clear? So example for this declarative languages are functional languages like ML and Haskell, and constraint languages like Prolog. Okay, so the term, one more, next language, I am coming to next language. Okay, so declare, imperative, declarative. Next language is von Neumann language. Von Neumann language is applied to programming languages whose computational mode is completely based on von Neumann computer architecture. It means that the von Neumann languages are those programming languages, their computational model, it means that their algorithm, their flowchart, their structure, their model, computational syntaxes, statements. Okay, so this computational model or method what we are using in von Neumann language, this is completely depends on based on von Neumann computer architecture. So such type of programming languages are called as von Neumann language. I hope you know von Neumann computer architecture. Okay, von Neumann computer architecture is nothing but there are mainly three components are there, three units: input unit, central processing unit, and output unit. Of course, inside the central processing unit, again there may be many other subunits like memory unit, control unit, arithmetic and logical unit. Okay, so this is a von Neumann computer architecture. Input devices provide input to central processing unit, and the data input data will be processed in a CPU. Then processed data will be given to the output devices. So in our programming language also we do the same thing. We first write the program, we give the input to that program, and that program gives us output. Correct? So whatever the programming languages are there which are using this von Neumann computer architecture, so those programming languages are called as von Neumann languages. Okay. So then one more type of language is object oriented language. Object oriented language. So these are languages support object oriented programming. Object oriented and procedure oriented, already I know, I think you know the difference. In object oriented languages, we can use object oriented concepts like inheritance, polymorphism, and so on, right? So there we can use objects and classes. So this type of programming languages are called as object oriented languages. Object oriented programming language is it is a programming style. It is a way of programming. It is a method of programming in which a program contains set of objects and classes, and these objects will communicate with each other or interact with each other. Okay. So very old and earlier object oriented languages were Simula 67 and Smalltalk. These two object oriented languages were used a lot in earlier days. But today, the object oriented languages which are most commonly used are C++, C Sharp, Java, Python, R, and Ruby, and so on. Many other are there. More recent object oriented languages. More recent are nothing but these only: Python, R, and etc. Okay. So next languages I call them as a scripting language. Scripting languages are the languages with high level operators. Remember, high level operators. Whatever the operators you are using, they are high level operators. Obviously, for high level computations. Okay, not like uh, simply like arithmetic operators like plus, minus, star, and slash, addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. More than that, there are so much complicated scientific computations are there. For those computations, whatever you are using the high level operators. Okay, for those operators, for those computations, we use scripting languages. These computations were originally called as a scripts. Okay, so example are, it means that the instructions what you have written for these computations, high level computations, are called as scripts. Examples are AWK, JavaScript, Perl, PHP, Python, Ruby, and Tell. These all are scripting languages. Okay, and programs written in scripting languages are much shorter than equivalent programs written in languages C. C language, C here. Okay, if you write a C program and after that you write the equivalent scripting language in scripting language program, you write the program, same program in a scripting language like Python or PHP or some Ruby or R, the size of that program will be very much shorter than C language. Okay. Next subtopic is impacts on these compilers. So yesterday we have started compilers topic, right? So when these compilers were invented or developed, it was basic compiler because the programming languages themselves were very basic there. Now, however, year by year, the advanced programming languages are inventing or developed. The compilers are also updated so that they can support those high level and recent programming languages. They can translate them, they can compile them. correctly. Okay, so however, these all programming languages are year by year, they are updating, they are improving themselves, and how this improvement in these programming languages is affecting compilers. Okay, since this design of programming languages and design of compilers are correlated. Okay, so how you design the programming language, based on that you design your compiler. So the developers of compiler or designers of compiler will be dependent upon the programming designers or developers of programming languages, how they are developing, what they are using, what all the features they are providing into this programming language. Based on that, that compiler developers will work. Okay, so design of programming languages and design of compilers are correlated, and the advances or improvements in these programming languages put the more challenges or demands or requirements on these compiler writers, definitely. So however, the programming languages are keep on updating day by day, then it will be the responsibility or it is a challenge for compiler writers to update the compilers also, so that those compilers should be compatible with these programming languages. Okay, so what they had to do, these compiler writers or compiler developers or compiler engineers or compiler designers, at that time when programming languages were keep on updating by generation to generation or some advancement in the generation, whatever the classification you want, you can consider procedure oriented language, object oriented language, scripting language. Okay, so however they were keep on updating, these compiler designers had to develop algorithms. They had to write algorithms to translate these new language features also, to compile or to convert these new language features also, not only for translating, for supporting these new language features. Okay, of course, however, the programming languages are keep on increasing, the set of instructions, set of features are keep on increasing. If you consider your C program and Python program only, you will come to know the importance of Python programming and what all the extra features and facilities you get in a Python. Okay, so accordingly, the compiler writers have to write the algorithms to support these new features of new programming languages and to translate them into low level languages. And apart from writing these type of algorithms, they also have written algorithms which are called as a translation algorithms. Okay, they have also written translation algorithms. Why they have written this type of algorithms? Again, to make best use of new hardware capabilities. New hardware capabilities. It means that if you are installing any new softwares for new programming language, definitely your configuration should be compatible, your PC or your system configuration should be compatible or upgraded compatible configuration. So to use these all new kind of hardwares or upgraded RAM, processor, etc., etc., etc. So to use these all new hardware capabilities also, these programming languages should be compatible with these new hardware capabilities. They have written algorithms, algorithms to translate and support these new features, and algorithms to translate, to use best use of or to support the new hardware capabilities also. And here compilers are advertising our high level languages. It means compilers are promoting our high level languages. They are advertising, because you know nowadays in your internet how much ads will come there regarding Python tutorial, Python that, this and all those things, projects, this and all. Why? So these compilers themselves, they are promoting these high level languages because by doing like so, they can minimize the execution steps or execution overhead. It means that execution overhead means what? Overhead means what it is? The required processing time. To process that program, we need some time, no? Okay. So before execution, first we process that program there in with the preprocessors. So here the pre-processing time, whatever it was the required preprocessor time, that preprocessor time can be minimized here. It means that almost all processing was done in a high level language itself. Okay. So since the almost all processing was done in a language itself, then for compilers, it will be not a workload or it will be not a burden of processing it before execution. Okay. So because of this minimizing the execution overhead of the programs written in these languages, compilers promote high level languages. You please use high level languages. You will get these features, you will get this advantage, you will get this knowledge, you can develop this type of project in this language. Like this, compilers will keep on promoting these high level languages. Okay. If these high level languages are updated and they started their uh, use, majority of use by the people, then definitely compilers also will be updated themselves, right? So because of that only, compilers will promote or advertise high level languages. That is a main reason, technical reason is here. By doing so, we can save the time, that's all. We can save the time. Before we submit any program to processor for execution, before executing that program, preprocessors or compilers will process that program. So this time will be minimized if we write the programs in high level language. Clear? Always remember, programming languages we write, programs we write in low level language or high level language or in between that assembly level language. But processing time for high level language is very, very less. So because of that only, compilers will always promote or suggest to use high level languages. Okay. So these all are the impacts or effects on compiler, how programming languages are affecting compilers. If high level, if programming languages are keep on updating, then automatically compilers will be also updated. Okay. Now, compiler writing is a challenging task actually. So it will be a very big challenge for compiler developers, compiler writers, compiler designers. Okay. Writing this compiler is also software, right? System software. So compiler software writing is also a challenging task. And a compiler itself is a large program actually. It is a large program. It is a large, big software it is. And compiler must translate n number of programs correctly, perfectly. Okay. It means after compiling today some 10 to 20 programs, compiler should not be exhausted or it should not be tired. Are you getting what I'm telling? Compiler should be so much robust or flexible that it should be or it must be translate or convert infinite number of programs, infinite number of set of programs that are written in source language. It means it should convert n number of source language programs to object programs correctly. This word is important, correctly, without making any mistake, perfectly. It should translate it. But interpreter is better than compiler in this task. Okay, because it finds errors perfectly. Sometimes compiler may make mistake, but interpreter cannot make mistake since it is scanning the program line by line. Okay, then compiler writers must decide about what to what problems to accept as challenge. It means which problems they have to accept as challenge, which problems, whether compilation speed or correctness of a compilation process, or what uh, aspect, what criteria they have to take as a challenge. They have to decide whether speed is important for you or correctness is important for you. Okay, and also they have to take a decision on what methods or which methods to use to generate a efficient code. Okay, so it means they have to decide which problem I should take it as a challenge, and which solution, which method I should select to solve this problem, and how best I should generate the efficient object code or object program. Because what is the compiler's purpose? Taking a source program as an input and producing the target program or object program, right? So compiler writers should decide what I should take as a challenge, which problem I should take as a challenge, whether speed matters for me or accuracy matters for me. They have to decide based on the requirement of programming languages or users of programming languages. Okay, then what is the second decision they have to make? The second decision is which methods or which solution I should choose to solve that problem so that I can generate best and efficient object program. Okay, so these all are impacts on our compilers. Okay, so when we improve or make advancements, or we find the advancements or improvements or updations in programming languages, at the same time we will find the updation in compilers also, because design of programming languages and design of compilers are correlated. Keep it in your mind. Okay, so next topic is science of building compilers. Okay, so science of building compilers is nothing but how a compiler can be constructed, how a compiler can be designed, how a compiler is developed, how a compiler is written. So these all questions behind this compiler is nothing but it is a science of building a compiler. What is science? Science means what? Everything is experimental there, right? How, what, where, how, everything, right? The same thing, how, why, when, how, where, everything we are applying on this building a compiler. It means how to build a compiler, when to build a compiler, where to build a compiler, and all those things. So many questions we are going to study in this topic, that is science of building a compiler. It means we are going to study about complete uh, detail information about developing a compiler or building a compiler. Okay, how exactly we should start to write the compiler, develop the compiler, because already you know in previous module assemblers, how assembler works internally, how we build them, everything you have seen there. Similarly here, now onwards, so one by one step we are going to take, because yesterday you have studied only the structure of compiler with 7 phases. Today you have seen the impacts on compiler because of programming languages. Tomorrow in the next class we will see how to construct, how to build, how to develop, how to design, how to write these compilers. Okay, step by step we are going to take the deep steps inside this compiler topic. Okay, so you can leave the meeting now. In next class I continue tomorrow. Okay, exit from the meeting now.